All right, let's talk about one of the most unexpected, shocking, and potentially game-changing events in recent Warhammer 40k history. The return of Lionel Johnson. For 10,000 years, the Primarch of the Dark Angels was nothing more than a ghost, a figure of myth and legend. Unlike Robot Guilliman, who was entombed in stasis, or the missing Primarchs whose fates remain unknown, Lionel Johnson was presumed dead, his legacy carried forward only in the shadows and whispers of his sons. And yet, against all odds, he has returned, But what does that mean for the Imperium? Is this a sign of hope, or does it herald something darker? Because if there's one thing we know about the Lion, it's that he is not a man easily controlled. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we need to go back. We need to remember who the Lion was, what made him such a unique figure among the Primarchs, and why his return is far more than just another lost son coming home. It's a shift in the balance of power, one that could redefine the Imperium forever. Lionel Johnson's return wasn't a grand, universe-shaking event like the resurrection of Guilliman. There were no triumphant marches, no Imperium-wide celebrations, no grand declarations from Terra. Instead, he woke in silence, alone, shrouded in mystery, just as he had lived for so much of his existence. Unlike his ultramarine brother, whose return was orchestrated by desperate Imperial forces and the godlike intervention of the Eldar, the Lion's reemergence feels more like an accident. Or maybe something that was meant to happen when the time was right. For 10 millennia, he slept in the depths of the mysterious Forest of Thorns, or the Forest of Dreams depending on the translation. This was no ordinary place, not just a cavern or a crypt. It was something other, a pocket of existence woven between reality and something more elusive. There are whispers that it was connected to the strange, near-mystical energies of Caliban itself, a remnant of whatever ancient force had shaped that cursed world long before the Emperor's arrival. Some even speculate that it was the presence of the Watchers in the dark, the enigmatic, hooded beings that had always lurked in the shadows of the Dark Angels, that kept him hidden and preserved for this moment. The fact that he woke now, at this precise juncture in history, raises more questions than it answers. Was it a coincidence? Was it fate? Or was it something far more deliberate? Some believe the Watchers orchestrated it, guiding his resurrection like master tacticians waiting for the right moment to move a crucial piece on the board. Others suggest the warp itself played a role, that the sheer madness of the galaxy, the horrors of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the rise of Abaddon, the return of demon Primarchs, somehow forced him back into reality. Maybe the sheer weight of all that darkness pulled him back like a counterbalance, the universe attempting in its own, cruel way to find equilibrium. And then there's the most outlandish theory, the one that sits uneasily in the minds of those who have studied Caliban's history. What if it wasn't just the Watchers who had a hand in this? What if something darker had an interest in his return? Caliban was a world deeply scarred by its past, a place where the warp had seeped into the very bones of the land. It was the breeding ground for the fallen, the site of Luther's betrayal, the place where the Dark Angels were shattered forever. If anything remained of that corruption, could it have touched the Lion during his long sleep? Changed him? Prepared him for something even he doesn't yet understand? What makes this even more intriguing is how he emerged, not in the heart of the Imperium, not in some bastion of loyalist strength, but in secrecy, operating from the shadows like an avenging ghost. This wasn't Guilliman rallying the forces of mankind with speeches and grand strategy. The Lion woke up and immediately did what he had always done best. He hunted ***. This alone speaks volumes about his state of mind. He didn't seek out Terra. He didn't bend the knee before the High Lords. He didn't even attempt to make direct contact with Guilliman. Instead, he found himself drawn to the remnants of his lost sons, gathering the scattered forces of the Dark Angels, hunting the fallen with a relentless, almost obsessive energy. Some see this as proof that he hasn't changed, that even after 10,000 years, he is still the cold, calculating warrior who places duty and retribution above all else. Others, however, suspect that he woke with a purpose he himself doesn't fully understand yet. Perhaps the Lion's return is not just about leading the Imperium, but about fixing something. Some unseen flaw, some old wound that has been festering for millennia. Maybe his war isn't just against the enemies of mankind, but against the ghosts of the past, against the mistakes that have haunted his legion since the fall of Caliban. But then there's the final, most chilling thought. What if Lionel Johnson's return is not just a blessing, but a warning? A sign that something even worse is coming. Something that needed a warrior like him to awaken. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that when a Primarch returns, it is never without consequence. The lion that strode across the battlefields of the Great Crusade was a figure of cold, calculating precision. He was brilliant, disciplined, and utterly ruthless when it came to war. His warriors revered him, but they also feared him, because unlike some of his brothers, he was not one for grand speeches or camaraderie. He was a predator, a man shaped by the dark forests of Caliban, where survival meant merciless efficiency. Every decision he made was calculated for maximum effectiveness, and sentimentality had no place in his rule. If someone was weak, they were discarded. If someone was a threat, they were eliminated. There was no room for hesitation. That lion is gone. Or at least the version that has returned is different. It's not just the passage of time that has changed him, though 10,000 years lost in an unnatural slumber would be enough to fracture anyone's perception of reality. It's what he woke up to. The galaxy he once knew is nothing but ashes. The Imperium he fought to build is a nightmarish shadow of what it was meant to be. The Emperor is silent, entombed in the Golden Throne, a rotting god rather than the living ruler he once followed. The ideals of the Great Crusade, unity, enlightenment, progress, are long dead, replaced by an empire that survives through fear, brutality, and blind devotion. And then there's the fact that he is alone. Before, there was always a sense of hierarchy, of structure. He had his warriors, his homeworld, his cause. Even the tensions with his brothers provided a framework for his actions. Now, he has woken into a world where nearly everyone who could understand him is either long dead or worse, turned against everything they once stood for. Guilliman is here, yes, but they were never truly close. And the Dark Angels, well, they are not the same as the warriors he once led. Their secrecy, their paranoia, their obsession with the past, it all stems from the disaster that consumed Caliban, an event that unfolded after his time. He may still be their leader in name, but there's an entire culture of mistrust and hidden agendas that didn't exist when he last walked among them. What's even more striking is his demeanor. He's still a warrior, still a brilliant tactician, still terrifyingly effective. But there's something else now, a quiet, almost ghostly quality to him. He fights, but there's no arrogance in it, no desire for recognition. He doesn't rally armies or demand fealty. Instead, he moves through the war-torn Imperium like a hunter in the dark, appearing where he is needed, cutting through enemies with cold efficiency and vanishing before anyone can process what just happened. And yet, despite his more solitary nature, there is something undeniably human about him in ways that were not present before. He is haunted. He speaks with a level of reflection and even regret that was never part of his character in the past. The old lion was pragmatic, logical to a fault, seeing the world in black and white. But now, he recognizes the shades of gray. He understands that things are not as simple as he once believed. Maybe it's the sheer weight of history pressing down on him. Maybe it's the realization that, for all his brilliance, He was powerless to stop the Imperium from turning into what it has become. Some even speculate that his time in the Forest of Dreams did more than just preserve him. It changed him on a fundamental level. There are theories that he was aware, at least in some way, during his long slumber. That he saw things beyond the material world. Some whispers suggest that the Watchers in the dark showed him visions of the future, glimpses of the horrors to come. If that's true, it would explain why he acts with such eerie precision, as if he knows exactly where to be at exactly the right time. But perhaps the most interesting question is this. What does the Lion want now? Before, his purpose was clear: conquer the stars, bring humanity to order, serve the Emperor. But that world is gone. The man he once followed is nothing more than a divine corpse. The dream he fought for has long since turned to dust. So what drives him now? There are those who believe he has returned simply to wage war, to do what he has always done best. That he will carve through the enemies of mankind until there is nothing left to fight. Others suggest that he has a deeper, more secret purpose, something he alone understands. Some even dare to hope that he will be the one to fix the Imperium, to cut through the rot and reshape it into something closer to what it was meant to be. But the most unsettling possibility, that he has no grand plan at all, that he is simply a warrior out of time, drifting through a universe that no longer makes sense to him, trying to find meaning in a world that barely remembers the man he used to be. The Lion has always been a man of order, not the kind of order built on dogma and blind faith, but the kind that is forged through discipline, structure, and control. In his time, he believed in humanity's potential to rise above its flaws, to create a vast, unified civilization where reason and strength ruled over chaos and weakness. He was never the type to be swept up in grand ideals or noble rhetoric. He simply did what was necessary, what was efficient. And now, after waking to find the Imperium in the state that it's in, one has to wonder, does he see anything left worth fighting for? Because let's be honest, what he sees now is not what he helped build. The Imperium was meant to be a beacon of human dominance, an empire of reason guided by the wisdom of its greatest warriors and scholars. What it has become is a bloated, crumbling nightmare, a paranoid theocracy where ignorance is law, where innovation is heresy, where billions die in meaningless wars to uphold systems that barely function. The Emperor, the man who once led with cold but undeniable purpose, has become little more than an icon of religious fanaticism. The institutions that were once tools of progress have become corrupt, self-serving monstrosities. The dream of a united humanity is long dead. So where does that leave the Lion? If he were like his brother, Guilliman, he might try to reform it. He might see the dysfunction, the decay, and believe he could fix it with careful policy and strategic maneuvering. But that's not who he is. The Lion has never been a politician. He doesn't negotiate with broken systems. He cuts them away. And that is exactly what he's doing. Unlike Guilliman, who plays the long game, working within the Imperium's corrupt framework to salvage what he can, the Lion has taken a far more direct approach. He doesn't sit in the halls of power, dealing with bureaucrats and priests. He is out in the field, hunting threats, carving through enemies with terrifying precision. Some see this as a sign that he has already given up on the Imperium as an institution, that he sees it not as something to be saved, but simply as a battlefield, a place where he can do the only thing he has ever truly excelled at. There is something almost tragic in that idea, the thought that he has returned to a galaxy that no longer holds a place for him, and so he does the only thing left to do. But there is another possibility. What if the Lion isn't just fighting for the Imperium's survival, but for something beyond it? What if he sees what Guilliman refuses to see, that this empire is too far gone to be repaired, that the only way forward is to tear it down and rebuild something new? There's a cold logic in that idea. He was never sentimental. If something is broken, you do not waste time trying to mend it. You replace it. And yet, there is an unsettling question that lingers. If the Lion does not believe in the Imperium as it is, then what does he fight for? Some think he still holds faith, not in the Imperium as an institution, but in the people within it. That for all its flaws, there is still something worth saving, even if it means tearing through the very foundations of the Empire to get to it. Others suspect his motives are even more personal, that his war is not about the Imperium at all, but about his own redemption. That he fights not to save the galaxy, but to atone for the failures of his past. Or maybe, just maybe, the Lion doesn't know the answer himself. Maybe he is still searching, still trying to find purpose in a world that barely resembles the one he once fought for. And if that's the case, then the real question isn't whether the Lion can accept the Imperium as it is. It's whether the Imperium can survive what he chooses to do next. For the Dark Angels, the return of their long-lost leader is nothing short of a miracle and a nightmare. No other warriors of the Imperium are as defined by their past as they are. Every aspect of their existence has been shaped by a single moment, a singular tragedy that has haunted them for 10,000 years, the fall of Caliban. That event didn't just break their homeworld, it shattered their identity, turning them into a brotherhood built on secrecy, guilt, and relentless self-policing. Their obsession with hunting the fallen, their endless need to keep their own past hidden from the rest of the Imperium, it all stems from the wound that was left when they lost him. And now, he's back. For centuries, the Dark Angels have functioned under the assumption that their greatest shame, the treachery of Luther and the division of their legion, could never truly be set right, that they could only atone through ceaseless, ruthless action. They became not just warriors, but hunters, chasing ghosts across the stars, capturing their own lost brothers and forcing them into silence. But what happens when the man they built their entire mythos around suddenly reappears? Does his presence absolve them, or does it make their shame even worse? One of the most immediate effects of his return is the sheer disruption it causes. For millennia, the inner circle of the Dark Angels has carefully controlled their secrets, ensuring that knowledge of the fallen never spreads beyond their ranks. They answer to no one. Not Guilliman, not the High Lords, not even the Inquisition. Their authority is absolute within their own order, built on centuries of power carefully held in place. But now there is someone above them again, someone whose very presence threatens to upend the rigid structure they've spent ages reinforcing. Some among them surely see this as a moment of salvation, an end to the paranoia, a chance to move forward. Others, however, must be terrified. If there is one thing the Dark Angels fear more than anything, it is losing control of their own history. And here stands the man who knows it better than anyone, the one person who could expose every lie they have ever told. So what does the Lion think of them now? That's the question that lingers. He led them once as warriors, as knights. He built them in his image, disciplined, relentless, efficient. But the warriors that serve under his banner now are not the same as those he once commanded. He has returned to find them twisted by secrecy, driven by a mission he never gave them. Does he see their obsession as necessary? Does he approve of the way they have handled the burden of Caliban's fall? Or does he see them as lost? There is a very real possibility that his return will split the Dark Angels down the middle ***. Some will undoubtedly follow him without question, seeing in him the true leader they have always needed. But others may resist. After all, the hunt for the fallen has become more than just a mission for atonement. It is the foundation of their entire existence. And if the Lion questions that mission, if he suggests another path, there are those within the inner circle who will not accept it. And what of the fallen themselves? This is perhaps the most interesting part of it all. For centuries, the Dark Angels have hunted them as traitors, as cowards who turned their backs on their own brothers. But the truth has always been more complicated than that. The fall of Caliban was not a simple act of treachery. It was a civil war between two sides that both believed they were right. Luther and his followers saw their betrayal as an act of defiance against an unjust ruler, a rebellion against a leader who abandoned them. And now, that same leader is back. What happens when the fallen learn of this? Do they see his return as a second chance to make things right? Do they rally to him, hoping for redemption? Or do they see him as nothing more than an old ghost, returning to haunt them once again? The Dark Angels have always been defined by secrecy, but with the Lion walking among them once more, secrets don't stay buried forever. The moment the Lion and Guilliman exist in the same era, tension is inevitable. They were never close, even in the days of the Great Crusade. They weren't rivals in the way some others were. There was no seething hatred, no open contempt. But there was always a distance, a coldness, an unspoken understanding that they simply did not see the world the same way. And now, in a galaxy teetering on the edge of annihilation, that divide has only grown deeper. Guilliman is a statesman, a strategist, yes, a brilliant warrior, absolutely. But at his core, he is someone who believes in the structure of empire. Even in the darkest times, he tries to build. He looks at the Imperium, sees the dysfunction, the rot, and rather than abandoning it or tearing it down, he works within the system. He may despise the ecclesiarchy, may loathe the way the Imperium has twisted into something unrecognizable, but he still plays the game. He rewrites laws, enforces structure, and tries, despite the near impossibility of it all, to mold the Imperium into something that can last. The Lion, on the other hand, has never been a builder. He has never been interested in laws, policies, or grand reforms. He operates in absolutes. Something is either right or it is wrong. A problem exists or it is removed. His mind is a hunter's mind, always calculating, always assessing. He doesn't see the Imperium as something to be managed. He sees it as something that must be cleansed. And the way he fights, the way he moves through the galaxy like a shadow, striking at threats without warning, makes it clear that he does not have the patience for bureaucracy. And that is where the conflict begins. Guilliman sees the Imperium as broken, but salvageable. The Lion sees it as broken beyond repair. Guilliman believes in diplomacy, in managing alliances, in guiding humanity through careful leadership. The Lion believes in cutting out weakness, in removing corruption by force. It's not that he wants to rule, but that he simply does not trust anyone else to make the right choices. Guilliman may command entire battle fleets, move entire sectors of the Imperium into place like pieces on a board. But the Lion chooses the battlefield himself, striking with brutal, surgical precision. This difference in philosophy is dangerous, because as much as Guilliman is the de facto ruler of the Imperium in the Emperor's absence, he is still only one man. And now, another figure of equal stature has emerged, one who does not agree with how things are being run. Guilliman demands unity. The Lion does not care about unity. Guilliman relies on the High Lords and the vast machinery of the Imperium to function. The Lion has never needed an empire to be dangerous. And the real problem? The Imperium needs them both. Guilliman is holding the Imperium together by sheer willpower, keeping the bureaucratic nightmare from collapsing entirely. Without him, everything implodes. But the Lion? The Lion can do things Guilliman cannot. He can go where armies cannot be spared, make the choices Guilliman is unwilling to make. He is not bound by laws, treaties, or diplomacy. He is the knife in the dark, the answer to problems Guilliman refuses to acknowledge. So how long before that leads to a direct confrontation? Guilliman can tolerate disobedience to a degree, but what happens when the Lion takes actions that directly contradict his vision? What happens when he eliminates people Guilliman needed alive? What happens when he starts making decisions that reshape the balance of power in the Imperium without consulting anyone? The Lion is not one to ask for permission, and Guilliman? Guilliman cannot allow another force in the Imperium that acts outside his control. Some fans believe this will lead to open conflict, not war necessarily, but something that feels just as dangerous. A cold war between two legends, two figures who should be allies but fundamentally cannot agree on what the Imperium should be. Others think Guilliman will try to reason with the Lion to convince him that change must happen gradually, through structure and leadership, not force and violence. But can the Lion be convinced? Does he even care about the Imperium enough to listen? And then there's the most terrifying possibility, that the Lion may lose patience with Guilliman entirely. That one day, he may look at the Lord Commander of the Imperium and see another failing system that needs to be removed. And if that day comes, the Imperium won't just be fighting the horrors of the galaxy, it will be fighting itself. The idea of the Lion taking the throne is something that sends shivers down the spine of anyone who truly understands what that would mean. Not because he wouldn't be capable, if anything, he might be one of the few figures in the Imperium who could command the kind of respect and authority needed to rule. But because if the Lion ever did take that position, it would not be the same Imperium anymore. It would be something else entirely. There's a reason this theory keeps coming up in fan discussions. Unlike Guilliman, who was thrust into leadership by necessity, the Lion exists outside the Imperium's political machine. He does not seek power. He does not maneuver through the tangled web of bureaucrats and high lords, trying to keep the failing structure from collapsing under its own weight. He simply acts. He cuts through problems like a blade, eliminating threats with brutal efficiency, never hesitating, never allowing sentimentality to cloud his judgment. And that is exactly why some believe he should rule. Guilliman plays politics because he has no other choice. The Imperium is a corpse held together by inertia, and if he were to force change too quickly, everything would shatter. He has to work within the system, even if he despises it. The Lion? The Lion has no such restraints. He has no patience for weakness, no interest in maintaining the status quo. If he were to claim power, it wouldn't be through diplomacy. He wouldn't convince anyone to follow him. He would take control, reshape the Imperium into something entirely different, something efficient. And that is what makes this idea so terrifying. Because what would an Imperium under the Lion even look like? Some believe it would be purer in a way. Stripped of the corrupt political institutions, freed from the stagnation of religious dogma. No more bloated, incompetent bureaucrats siphoning resources while entire planets burn. No more pointless feudal systems where power is handed down through birthright rather than merit. The Imperium would become a war machine in its truest form, focused, disciplined, unrelenting. A place where strength dictates worth, where only those who can serve have the right to exist. But others think it would be even worse than what exists now. Guilliman, for all his frustrations with the Imperium, still believes in its survival. He wants to save it. But does the Lion? That's the real question. He has never been a leader who ruled through compassion. His form of leadership has always been cold, driven by logic and efficiency rather than ideology. He does not tolerate failure. He does not allow sentimentality to influence his decisions. If he took the throne, it would not be as a benevolent ruler. It would be as an executioner. Some even fear that his rule would not fix the Imperium, but would accelerate its destruction. That instead of a slow, painful decay, he would burn away everything unworthy, leaving behind only what he deems strong enough to survive. A more militant Imperium, a more ruthless Imperium, one where mercy is weakness, where sacrifice is not just expected, but demanded. And then there's the more radical idea, the one that suggests he wouldn't just replace Guilliman. He would replace the Emperor himself. This is where things get wild. There are those who believe that the Imperium needs a true ruler, not just a regent like Guilliman, but an actual living sovereign to command absolute authority, someone to end the infighting, the stagnation, the corruption. If the Emperor himself cannot return, then perhaps the lion is the next best option. He is a warrior, a hunter, a legend come back to life. He could unite the Imperium through fear and discipline, molding it into a force that could actually survive the horrors of the galaxy rather than just endlessly suffer under them. But there's one problem with this theory. The lion does not seek power. He never has. He was never interested in ruling, never one to desire control in the way that others might. He leads because he must, because he is the strongest, because he understands what must be done. But the idea of him sitting on a throne, issuing commands from the heart of Terra, it doesn't fit. He is a warrior, a hunter, a man who thrives in motion, in action. If he were ever to rule, it would not be from a seat of power. It would be from the battlefield. So could he become the new emperor? Yes. Would he want to? That's the real question. And perhaps the most dangerous answer of all is this. What if he is forced to? What if the Imperium reaches a point where the only way forward is for someone like him to take control, whether he wants to or not? What if, despite his nature, despite his instincts, he becomes what the Imperium needs? Because if that ever happens, the Imperium as we know it will be gone forever. If there's one thing the lion has always been, it's a hunter. Not a conqueror like Guilliman, not a zealot like the Black Templars, not a politician like the High Lords of Terra, a hunter. And that is exactly what makes him one of the most terrifying weapons against chaos the Imperium has ever had. Because while others wage wars with massive armies and grand campaigns, the lion does not fight wars. He ends them. Unlike Guilliman, who must navigate the political landscape of the Imperium while fending off the forces of chaos, the lion has no such burdens. He's free to move as he pleases, free to strike where he is most needed. And while the Imperium as a whole struggles to hold the line against the endless tide of the warp, the lion is a precision weapon, capable of going where others cannot, of killing what others cannot. But can he really change the course of the war? That's where things get interesting. The Black Crusades of Abaddon have ravaged the galaxy for centuries, but the most recent one, the 13th, was something else entirely. The fall of Cadia, the birth of the Great Rift, the sheer scale of devastation. It was a turning point in the Imperium's struggle against the forces of chaos. And while Guilliman has been doing everything in his power to stabilize the situation, he is fighting a losing battle. The Imperium is being bled dry. This is where the lion's unique strengths come into play. He does not wage total war like the Imperium's massive armies. He strikes decisively, removing key threats before they can escalate. And that is exactly the kind of warfare the Imperium needs right now. There are too many fronts, too many enemies, and not enough time to fight them all. Guilliman's strategy is one of endurance, of slow and methodical stabilization. But the lion? He is the answer to chaos, the hand that removes a problem before it becomes a crisis. Imagine what that means for Abaddon's war effort. For centuries, the War Master of Chaos has been able to strike where the Imperium is weakest, manipulating the slow, clunky machinery of the Imperium's defenses to his advantage. But now, there is a ghost in the dark, a force that moves faster than chaos itself, appearing where he is least expected, cutting down warlords, eliminating key assets before they can be deployed. Some believe the lion will become the Imperium's countermeasure. Against the traitor warlords, the force that can neutralize the most dangerous figures before they can do real damage. The Dark Angels have already been waging their own secret war against chaos for centuries, and now they have their true leader back. If the lion fully commits to this war, it could tip the balance, turning the tide against the legions of the warp not through massive battles, but through relentless, unseen execution. But then there's the other possibility, the one that makes people nervous. What if chaos is not just an enemy for the lion to fight? What if it is something he understands in a way others do not? Caliban was not just a world of knights and warriors. It was a place tainted, a place that bore scars from something older, something darker. The beasts that roamed its forests were not just animals. They were warped, twisted by unnatural forces. And then there are the Watchers in the dark, those mysterious figures that have always been at his side, whispering their cryptic warnings. What if the lion knows something about chaos that others do not? What if his long slumber in the Forest of Dreams showed him things that the Imperium has been blind to? Some fans speculate that the lion's real mission is not just to fight chaos, but to prevent something even worse, something that he alone has been made aware of. Maybe it's connected to the return of Lorgar, to the dark prophecies that speak of the gods of chaos achieving true dominion over reality. Maybe it's something deeper, something tied to the origins of Caliban itself. Or maybe, just maybe, the lion is not here to save the Imperium. Maybe he is here to burn away everything that could lead to its final doom. And if that means cutting through the Imperium's own forces, if that means eradicating everything that could be tainted, then so be it. Because the lion does not just fight wars, he hunts them. The lion has always been an enigma, even to those who followed him with absolute loyalty. He was never the kind to share his thoughts, never the type to explain his actions. He simply acted, and those around him either kept up or got left behind. But now that he has returned, there's an unsettling question hanging over everything. What is he hiding? Because let's be honest, there's no way he just woke up, dusted himself off, and decided to pick up where he left off. 10,000 years is an eternity, and no one sleeps through that without being changed. He wasn't in stasis like Guilliman, frozen in time until the moment was right. He was in the Forest of Dreams, an unnatural, impossible place tied to forces that no one fully understands. Some believe it was a form of protection, a hidden sanctuary created by the Watchers in the dark to keep him safe. Others suspect something much darker, that his long sleep wasn't just preservation, but transformation. What did he see in that place? What did he learn? There are theories that his time in the forest wasn't just passive, that he was aware, at least in some way, of what was happening in the galaxy. Maybe not in the way a waking man sees the world, but in visions, in whispers. And if that's the case, then he isn't just back. He has returned with knowledge that no one else has. Knowledge that he isn't sharing. And then there's the bigger question. What does he really think about the Dark Angels? He hasn't revealed much, hasn't made any grand declarations about their future, but his actions speak volumes. He didn't return to the Rock to take command. He didn't call for a gathering of his warriors. He didn't step into the role of a traditional leader. Instead, he has moved alone, hunting in the shadows, making calculated strikes. Some fans believe this is intentional, that he doesn't trust his own sons anymore. And why would he? The Dark Angels of today are a completely different breed from the warriors he once commanded. Their obsession with secrecy, their rigid hierarchy, their relentless hunt for the fallen, none of this was his doing. This is something that happened after him, something built on guilt and paranoia. And maybe, just maybe, he sees it as a mistake. What if his true goal isn't to lead them, but to correct them? To strip away the corruption that has taken hold in their ranks, to tear down the walls of secrecy they've built around themselves? If that's the case, then his return isn't just a blessing for the Dark Angels. It's an existential threat. Because if there's one thing the inner circle fears more than anything, it's losing control of their secrets. But then there's the real nightmare, the possibility that the Lion isn't just keeping secrets from the Imperium, but from everyone. There's a chilling theory that has been floating around for a while now. What if the Lion's long absence wasn't just about waiting for the right time to return? What if he has a mission that no one else understands? Some believe the Watchers in the dark have shown him visions of the future, a fate so catastrophic that even Guilliman hasn't seen it coming. Something that requires him to act in secrecy, outside the Imperium's command structure, without anyone questioning his methods. And if that's true, then we have to ask ourselves, what exactly is he preparing for? Because the Lion has never been one to waste time. He doesn't react to problems. He eliminates them before they become threats. And if he is out there, moving in the dark, hunting something, then whatever it is, it must be bigger than anything the Imperium has ever faced before. Or worse, it might already be here. The return of the Lion is not just another chapter in the history of the Imperium. It's a turning point, a shift in the balance of power that no one was prepared for. Because he is not like Guilliman. He is not a ruler, not a reformer, not someone who cares about the survival of the Imperium as an institution. He is a force of nature, a warrior who acts with absolute conviction, who removes problems rather than debating them. And that makes his future one of the biggest wild cards in Warhammer's ongoing story. So what happens next? There are a few possibilities, and none of them are simple. Some believe he will eventually take command in a more direct way, that Guilliman will either see his value or be forced to acknowledge that he cannot do this alone. The Imperium is stretched too thin, fighting too many wars on too many fronts. Guilliman is burdened by the weight of governance, constantly dealing with political scheming, religious fanatics, and bureaucratic deadlock. The Lion, on the other hand, does not care about any of that. He acts. He moves in the shadows, striking where the Imperium's enemies are weakest, making the hard decisions that Guilliman cannot. If the two of them cooperate, if Guilliman rules while the Lion acts as the executioner, the Imperium could become something far more dangerous than it has ever been before. A machine that does not just survive but thrives, where bureaucracy and politics no longer hold back the military's full potential, a cold, efficient empire with no room for weakness. But there's also the other side of that equation, the possibility that they cannot coexist, that their differences are too great, their philosophies too opposed. Guilliman is trying to preserve what remains of the Imperium, no matter how broken it is. The Lion, however, might not see anything worth preserving. If he looks at what humanity has become and decides that it is beyond saving, what then? That's where things get dangerous. There is a theory, one that has been gaining traction among fans, that the Lion may eventually break away from the Imperium entirely. That he will see the rot for what it is and refuse to be a part of it. Imagine what that would mean. He does not need armies to be effective. He does not need fleets, bureaucrats, or the political machine that keeps the Imperium barely functioning. He could disappear, taking his own hand-picked warriors with him, and wage his own war on his own terms. And if that happens, if he starts choosing which parts of the Imperium are worthy of survival and which must be cut away, then he becomes something the Imperium has never had before, a rogue legend, a figure whose actions can no longer be predicted or controlled. Some believe this will make him a savior, the only one willing to do what must be done to purge the true weaknesses of the Imperium. That he will hunt down corruption, not just among the Imperium's enemies, but within its own ranks, eliminating the worst excesses of the ecclesiarchy, the High Lords, and even the Inquisition itself. A one-man reckoning. Others think it will make him a disaster, a figure whose refusal to play by the rules will only deepen the Imperium's fractures. Because make no mistake, he is not someone who bends. He does not make compromises. He does not negotiate. If he deems something unworthy, it is gone. And then there's the most unsettling theory of all, the idea that the Lion is not just another piece in the game, that he is something entirely different, something that the Imperium itself does not yet understand. What if his true purpose is something even he does not fully grasp? What if his long sleep, the whispers of the Watchers in the dark, the strange precision with which he moves through the galaxy now is leading him toward something inevitable? What if he is not here to save the Imperium, but to end it? Because if the Lion ever decides that the Imperium itself is the true enemy of mankind, there will be no warning, no speeches, no declarations of war. There will simply be the hunt. The return of the Lion has already changed the Imperium in ways few could have predicted. He didn't arrive as a savior, rallying armies under a grand banner, nor as a ruler, taking his place among the High Lords and dictating the course of history. He returned exactly as he has always been, a warrior, a hunter, a force that exists outside the expected order of things. And because of that, the full impact of his presence has yet to be truly understood. Already, there are whispers. The Dark Angels are moving differently, shaken by the presence of a leader they never expected to see again. The inner circle, once so certain in their control, now finds itself under his gaze. The Imperium's enemies, whether they be traitors, heretics, or something worse, have already felt the weight of his presence. Entire war bands eradicated before they could even comprehend what had hit them. And Guilliman, for all his authority, now faces a new variable in a game that was already spiraling out of control. And yet, for all that has changed, the biggest questions are still unanswered. What does the Lion want? What is his true purpose? Is he here to stand by Guilliman, to help hold the Imperium together in its darkest hour? Or is he something far more unpredictable, a figure who acts according to his own understanding of what must be done, regardless of who it puts him at odds with? Some believe his return is a blessing, the arrival of a warrior who can cut through the failures of the past and reshape the Imperium into something stronger. Others see him as a wild card, someone who is too independent, too dangerous to fit neatly into the existing power structure. And then there are those who whisper that his return is not a sign of hope, but a warning that something is coming, something so vast, so unthinkable, that the galaxy itself needed him to awaken. Because one thing is certain, this is only the beginning. The galaxy is more unstable than ever, the Imperium teetering on the edge of collapse, the forces of chaos gathering for something far more destructive than anything seen before. The Lion has returned at this precise moment for a reason. The only question now is what role he will play in what comes next. If you've made it this far, you already know how important this is. The future of the Imperium is more uncertain than ever, and the presence of the Lion is a factor that could change everything. So what do you think? Will he be the blade that saves the Imperium, or the executioner that ends it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the Warhammer universe. Because trust me, the story is far from over.